Glitch Productions just fired all shots at Disney, and it's amazing. So, just recently, the pilot for Glitch Productions' latest series and their first 2D animated series, Knights of Guinevere, just premiered on YouTube. For those who don't know, Glitch Productions is a very prominent independent animation studio on YouTube that has produced shows like Murder Drones and The Amazing Digital Circus and earned a lot of acclaim because of that. They are a very popular studio in their own right, and they've really made a name for themselves in the animation space in general. But when the first teaser for Knights of Guinevere came out back in January of this year, it seemed to hit in a really different way than any of their other shows. While many of Glitch's shows aren't really a stranger to darker themes, this seemed to be taking it in a very different, more specific direction, a direction aimed directly at Disney. Right from the get-go, a lot of fans noticed things that were very prominent in this trailer that seemed to hint that this show would be a deconstruction of the Walt Disney Company in general. And that theory ran even further due to the surprising name that was attached as the creator of this show, that being the legendary Dana Terrace. For those unaware, Dana Terrace was previously the creator of The Owl House for Disney, one of their best cartoons in recent memory, and arguably just one of the greatest cartoons of the 21st century. It was a really great show with a lot of well fleshed out storytelling and world building, and a lot of great autism coding with its main character Luce as well. In general, the show was actually a big rating success for Disney, especially for a show aired on cable on Disney Channel during the age of streaming. However, just like all good TV shows out there, unfortunately this wasn't meant to last, because after the show was renewed for a third season, it actually was immediately cancelled not long afterward. This came as a shock to literally everybody because by all merits, the show was a success. It was critically acclaimed and it was getting good ratings for Disney. Initially, the big thing that people were trying to point to as a reason for the show's cancellation was the fact there's a lot of positively received LGBT representation within it. In fact, the show's main character, Luce, is openly bisexual and is in a same-sex relationship with her girlfriend Amity throughout the show. However, interestingly enough, this actually isn't the thing that got the show canceled, which really does make sense given the show actually won a Peabody Award for its representation. The reason why The Owl House was actually canceled, according to Dana herself, was actually because it's a very serialized show. In a Reddit post she made not long after it was announced that Disney had canceled The Owl House, there are a few business people who oversee what fits into the Disney brand, and one day one of those guys decided The Owl House didn't fit that brand. The story is serialized, our audience skews older, and that just didn't fit this one guy's taste.
Everything I've ever been interested in has always lended itself to long-form storytelling. I can't imagine any other kind of career I could have taken without being incredibly depressed.
Imagine canceling one of your company's most successful and beloved shows just because it didn't fit your tastes. But more importantly, because this show is serialized and Disney didn't think they could get easy reruns out of a show like this. All the cartoons currently airing on network television right now, as of me making this video, are all actually episodic shows where you can jump into any episode and understand what's going on. And currently, this is what all the major studios seem to want for their cartoon channels, whether it's Disney, Cartoon Network, or Nickelodeon. In a lot of ways, the age of serialized animated storytelling on network television has all but come to a close, and unfortunately, Owl House came just at the tail end of that. So because it came out during the time of Disney navigating all their content to their new streaming service, Disney Plus, which had just come out a year prior to The Owl House, and also having the unfortunate situation of debuting during the time when Disney was leaking a ton of money during the pandemic, The Owl House unfortunately ended up being a big casualty of this. And inevitably, the really ridiculous reasoning for why The Owl House was cancelled stung for Dana Terrace personally a lot, and because of this, she vowed she would never work with Disney ever again. Even as the third and final season was airing on Disney Channel and seeing the ratings soar higher than ever before, Disney themselves actually realized they made a huge mistake canceling The Owl House. But it was too little too late. They lost the opportunity to ever work with Dana again because of how they mistreated her show. So now that brings us to today, where Dana is working with Glitch Productions on a show that seems to be taking very direct jabs at Disney, such as taking place in a cosmic theme park and having a robot princess character that looks an awful lot like Disney's own princesses. Heck, even this character voiced by ProZitty looks almost exactly like Walt Disney himself. Also, this one blink and you'll miss it jab about live action remakes here. I see ya, Dana. So today I want to talk about the Knights of Guinevere pilot, how it makes fun of Disney, and also tackle some other deeper things as well, and also how this looks really promising if this actually gets greenlit as a full series. The episode opens with a young girl named Olivia looking over a giant theme park in space that has apparently been built by her father named Orville. Orville, who obviously isn't meant to represent Walt Disney himself whatsoever, tells his daughter that one day this entire park will be hers. While they're discussing this, a robot version of Princess Guinevere, or Gwen as the show refers to her as, is standing next to them and not looking so great at all since her intestines are pouring out. And of course, Olivia just has to try to yank on her intestines to get her closer to her. Wow, Dana, you really like your body horror, huh? However, it seems this really causes Gwen to start glitching out and she jumps off the balcony and into the water below, seemingly to be seen never again. After this, we cut to a quick flashback montage of Gwen doing different Disney-related promo things, such as going on press tours and being the face of a series of American Girl-like dolls, and inevitably also starring in a live-action remake that nobody seems to like or want. Wow, what a shock! I guess fiction really does mirror reality sometimes. We also see a pretty gruesome headline where apparently a visitor of Planet Park attempted to attack one of the Gwens, and supposedly this resulted in it losing its hand. I think the more interesting headline here though is actually the one at the bottom of the page where it says, "Parents shocked, newborn babies born blue." At the start of this episode and all throughout it, we see that the Gwens bleed blue blood when they are injured. So I'm kind of wondering if the blue blood is almost like a toxic substance of some sort and it's causing people to either mutate or things like this to happen to their kids. It does seem like some of those seeds are being planted early on here as plot points, so I guess we'll see where this goes going forward. We also see some pretty massively dystopian imagery of Park Planet seemingly enslaving everyone on the planet that they're floating above. And as a result, because they're the main corporate entity on Park Planet now, most people that want jobs have to go work for them. Park Planet has pretty much wiped out any and all other job opportunities since they're the sole dominant corporate force on the planet. And it's here we start to see even more allusions to Disney as a company, which just so happens to own some of the most profitable and successful creative brands in the entire world. We're talking Pixar, ABC, well, whoops, Marvel, Star Wars, Fox. Disney pretty much owns everything. And the analogy is very clear here. With Disney owning so many things and basically being a monopoly unto itself at this point, it does tend to not leave a lot of other corporate avenues open for up-and-coming creatives to pitch their work to. While there are still of course a number of corporations out there that Disney hasn't bought out, such as Paramount or Warner Brothers, that could also be options, even some of those have been in danger of being bought out as well, with the news recently breaking that Netflix is apparently looking to buy out Warner Brothers. Which honestly is kind of insane if that isn't a rumor. I guess that's what happens when you have someone as stupid as David Zaslav as your CEO. Someone needs to get rid of this man already. But the analogy is definitely very strong here since Park Planet seems like the only entity available for a lot of these people to work at. With how vastly this corporation has spread and taken over most aspects of life on this planet, there isn't really any other option out there for these people. And it's here we get our first look at our two main characters who just so happen to be employees of Disney, Park Planet, that being two people named Francesca and Andrea. Francesca, or Frankie as she's called here, is basically a construction worker and fisherwoman at the same time. She has the job of catching trash that people discard from the park above that falls into the ocean and then melting it into different stuff for the park to use. I feel like this could be an analogy for how Disney takes a lot of its older properties and usually melts and molds them into something a lot more mundane and uninteresting, like with the live action remakes. Especially in recent memory, rather than coming up with anything new, Disney would rather recycle old ideas and repackage them for minimum effort and maximum profit. And that is exactly what's being shown here, with Frankie literally fishing the park's trash out of the ocean for the company to just repackage and reuse again. Wow, very subtle, guys. Honestly, all the jabs at Disney throughout this episode are pretty amazing. As for Andrea, or Andy as the show calls her, she works directly in the park working on animatronics as an engineer. Interestingly enough, Frankie also wants this role so that she can work alongside Andy, but Andy despises her job and discourages Frankie from trying to pursue this role. Given she works directly within the company, she's far more aware of just how stifling and awful it is than Frankie is. I think we can see a lot of the early optimism that Dana first had when working with Disney being channeled through the character of Frankie here, and I think it's through Andy that we see a lot more of Dana's current thoughts on Disney as a company being channeled through that character. Aside from her frustrations of having her show canceled prematurely, Dana has also opened up about a lot of her gripes with how Disney the company operates, specifically with how they're notorious for often meddling and interfering with a lot of the works of the creative people that work there. Obviously, this is something that affected her directly, since rather than the final season of her show getting 20 episodes like the other seasons did, it got 3-hour-long episodes, which basically just boils down to 6 22-minute episodes overall. This was not enough to tell the final vision of the story that she wanted, so a lot of things feel very rushed in this final season. This was a direct result of Disney looking at her show and intentionally changing or tweaking things that they felt needed to be altered. And inevitably, she's not even the only person that has been very outspoken about Disney doing this. Someone like Tim Burton has been very critical of Disney in the past, especially with his work on Dumbo, since he felt a lot of his creative control was very restricted on that movie in particular. Tim Burton actually got his start working at Disney in the 1980s before getting fired for making a short film, Frankenweenie, that Disney executives thought was too scary. And lo and behold, after his take on Batman became one of the highest grossing films of all time at the time of its release, Disney was more than happy to have him back to help him produce The Nightmare Before Christmas. Gee, funny how that works. David Fincher, even the legendary director of Seven, Fight Club, and The Social Network, even had to deal with this from Disney when he was supposed to create a remake of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea for them. A lot of people don't know this, but David Fincher actually was working with Disney in the early 2010s on a 20,000 Leagues movie, and he was very eager to do this since the original novel is one of his favorites. However, inevitably, when he submitted the script to Disney, a lot of the executives started to pick it apart, which immediately caused him to back out of the project. As Fincher himself said, Disney was in a place where they were saying, we need to know that there's a thing that we know how to exploit snout to tail, and you're gonna have to check all these boxes for us. And I was like, you've read Jules Verne, right? This is a story about an Indian prince who has real issues with white imperialism, and that's what we want to do. And they were like, yeah, fine, as long as there's a lot less of that in it, end quote. Thankfully for Fincher, a lot of the ideas he had planned for Disney with 20,000 Leagues ended up being put in his Love, Death, and Robots episode Bad Traveling, so at least he got that. This kind of Disney corporate meddling also caused a film like The Emperor's New Groove to get delayed multiple times and basically turn into a different film by the time it actually released. Since initially that was going to be an epic Prince and the Pauper-esque musical called Kingdom of the Sun. This kind of corporate meddling and tweaking has existed for a long time at Disney, and it's honestly reflected really well with the character of Andy in this show. It's very clear that she's been in the thick of this kind of treatment and is just really done with it, which of course currently mirrors a lot of Dana's personal sentiments on Disney as well. Meanwhile, while Andy is out slaving for the not Disney Corporation, Frankie is still on her fishing boat when she finds something very unusual. It seems somehow a real live Guinevere robot has made its way onto her junk pile. She's extremely excited about this find at first, but then her boss tells her that he just plans to scrap it anyway. Enraged by this, Frankie hatches a plan for her and Andy to sneak the robot out of her boss's metal storage unit. They almost succeed in doing so until they're caught by her boss. Whoops. Frankie's boss attempts to take the robot back from her, but Frankie refuses, and she sees it as an opportunity for her to get the kind of job that Andy has. She wants a job working in the park directly and working with the people in it, since she thinks that she can bring joy to others by doing so. And this is definitely interesting to me because while Disney the corporation is bad for a number of reasons, there are still a lot of very creative people who earnestly work at Disney trying to bring joy to others. It just so happens that oftentimes a lot of their more creative ideas just get stifled by executives there, so they usually don't see the light of day. That's a big reason why my motto has always been dislike the corporation, don't dislike the creative people that work within it. And that has never been more true than for a company like Disney. Frankie very clearly does have good intentions and wants to try to bring joy to people from within the company, but probably doesn't realize how Park Planet stifles a lot of its employees. Regardless, her and Andy are able to come to an agreement with her boss. He'll let them go fix the robot Gwen if they promise to bring the Gwen back to him so that he can sell it off for even more money as a fixed version. So they go down to Park Planet's underground labs to try to fix the robot Gwen and walk by some spheres that look suspiciously like Spaceship Earth from Disney's Epcot. The thing that makes me feel like this isn't a coincidence at all, however, is what Andy says about the underground labs themselves.
Welcome to the lower labs, where abandoned projects are left to rot.
For those who don't know, Epcot itself is actually technically an abandoned project, or at least part of one. Initially, Walt Disney imagined Epcot as essentially a modern-day World's Fair, where technology and the latest innovations from all over the world would be showcased in one big place, as well as having a fully functioning city with over 20,000 residents, with some elements functioning as a living laboratory showcasing the latest in innovative technology and urban planning, and providing it for the residents of the city. Unfortunately, after Walt died in 1966, Disney decided they couldn't go forward with this larger vision without Walt's leadership and scaled back his original vision for Epcot, opting to have a smaller Innovations building for companies like Sega and Apple to showcase their latest tech, and also having a World Showcase area to represent different select countries from around the world. So while Epcot itself does technically exist today, the original vision for it is actually an abandoned project, which definitely ties into what Andy is saying here. And given how much Disney lost media or projects that don't get off the ground are out there, it's not hard to imagine this is likely a commentary on that. Did you know there was gonna be an Epic Mickey spinoff with Donald Duck called Epic Donald? Well, now you do! Man, my autistic butt knows way too much about this stuff. It could be a whole video in of itself. Comment down below if you want to see me cover Disney lost media, I guess. Or comment down below telling me if you want to see me cover how the Owl House discusses both neurodivergency and mental health in a really respectful way. That could definitely be an interesting video as well. However, just as they're nearing the lab to repair Gwen, out of nowhere the Gwen robot screams out randomly as if to try and warn our heroes of something. Oh, well, now they're getting chased by a giant night demon. Great. Frankie and Andy attempt to outrun this monstrosity, but quickly get cornered by it. Just when all hope seems lost, however, in a shocking turn of events, the Gwen robot suddenly springs to life and immediately sets to work by protecting both her knights. And this results in a pretty bloody battle that I'm actually surprised YouTube let slide for Dana. Surprising W for YouTube here. After this, Frankie and Andy finally make it to the repair lab and set to work repairing this version of Robot Gwen. After this, we cut to Gwen finally waking up and rebooting and saying hi to a younger version of both Frankie and Andy. And that's exactly where the episode ends. Wow. Man, this was an incredible first episode from top to bottom. This show was already showing a lot of promise from the get-go here with some really great world building with this cyberpunk Blade Runner dystopian type universe where theme parks seem to be the dominant force of society. And obviously there were tons of great jabs at Disney throughout this entire episode, but the thing I liked the most is that this show didn't try to just sell itself solely on being an edgy takedown of Disney. It clearly is setting itself up with its own identity and not just trying to bank purely off of Dana's personal spite towards Disney, which I really appreciate. If this show was all just jabs towards Disney with no real substance or story or identity of its own, I probably wouldn't like it at all, actually. While Disney as a company definitely needs to be criticized quite a bit, creating an entire show just making jabs at them would be really shallow and that would only get you so far. Thankfully, however, Dana has proven herself as a really talented storyteller time and time again, and she takes that same approach and talent here. The big difference is, now that she's not working for Disney, she can basically do whatever she wants as long as it doesn't get her banned off YouTube. Glitch as a studio basically has no restrictions for what they showcase on their media except for that, so really the sky is kind of the limit for what Dana can do with this show. As long as she doesn't do anything that'll get them demonetized or kicked off the platform, she's basically good. And that in of itself is already a lot more freedom than what she had at Disney. And that's not even getting into the controversy from a few years back that Dana gave her personal thoughts on, where Disney was found out giving money to the Don't Say Gay bill during the Bob Chapek era. Needless to say, as a queer person, Dana wasn't really a fan of this.
Hi everyone, this is Dana Terrace, the creator of The Owl House, and if you've been following my timeline, you know that Disney was recently found out to be donating large sums of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to the sponsors and co-sponsors of the Don't Say Gay bill, a bill that effectively tells kids, LGBTQ plus kids, that you don't exist, you don't deserve to exist, and you shouldn't even be talked about. Well, we got an email. We got a company-wide email this morning, basically telling us, in summary, Disney as a company is not going to change doing any of this. We're not going to not give money to these people. But here are a bunch of flowery and compassionate words to shut you up. The email goes on to say, I believe from Bob Chapek, I believe the best way for our company to bring about lasting change is through the inspiring content we produce and the diverse organizations we support. I'm someone who had a hard time coming to terms with my queerness until my mid-20s because of stuff like this, because I thought I shouldn't exist, because no one even told me I had the option of existing. And man, I know I got bills to pay, but working for this company has made me so distraught, and I hate having moral quandaries about how I feed myself and how I support my loved ones.
However, it is clear that Dana isn't completely spiteful at Disney, since she has talked about how she enjoyed having funding from a company as big as them to do the kind of animated stuff that they wanted and get all the great artists that they had on the Owl House.
So many people do focus on the negatives and like, how horrible was it? Like, what's the worst S&P question you ever got? But Disney did provide us with the budget to hire like some of the best artists I've ever worked with in my entire career. The most amazing draftsmen, the most amazing like art directors, Andy Gardner-Flexner, Ricky Cometa, who are the two art directors throughout the series. We had a writer's room full of extremely talented people. At any other studio, we would have been able to meet those artists or pay them the salary they deserved, but Disney did allow that.
Admittedly, without a company like Disney, a lot of that funding probably wouldn't have been there for a lot of that great animation and those great artists. But with Glitch now being such a major player on the indie animation scene and also making a ton of money in its own right with a lot of hit shows now, it also provides Dana with an even bigger opportunity to do what she wants and still have the funding for it. If you just look at any frame from Knights of Guinevere, there's clearly so much money and passion put into this show, and it's kind of really great to see. I think stuff like this really shows just how important indie animation is for giving creators a real voice and real platform to do whatever they want. And admittedly, if this keeps up, companies like Paramount or Disney or Warner Brothers are gonna start losing a lot of their really talented people to indie companies like this. That is, if they continue to refuse to hear a lot of their creative, talented people out, but I guess time will tell if that will change or not. Overall though, I'm really impressed with Knights of Guinevere, and I can't wait for the next episode. Knowing how Glitch's production schedule generally works, and given the fact this is a backdoor pilot, I imagine the next episode won't be out for at least a few more months, but overall I'm really excited for when it does finally debut. This show absolutely has my interest, and I can't wait to see what it does next. But what do you think? Have you seen the Knights of Guinevere pilot yet? If so, what do you think? And what should I cover next on the channel here? Let me know in the comments below. Regardless, thank you so much for coming to the end of this video and watching the full thing. I hope you enjoyed it or learned something new from it. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a like, and also consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do a lot of videos like this overall, talking about both film and animation, so if you like this video, you'll probably like the other videos I have planned as well. You can also follow me on all the socials linked down below. I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, all the things. You can also check out my letterbox down below to see individual reviews of movies and shows, sometimes movies and shows that I won't review here on YouTube. Special thanks to my patrons DDC1996, Trayvon Gibson, You the Guardian, David Deister, Sparky Fluffles, Balf Games, Jared the Rabbit, MNBY123, Geothermal Penguin, and Sasha Blasik for supporting me over there. I appreciate y'all pitching in with the extra monetary effort to keep me doing what I do here. Patrons get a vote on what I cover next, and also get exclusive content, and also get to pick things for me to react to there. I appreciate y'all pitching in with the extra monetary effort to keep me doing what I do here, and I appreciate you for coming to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it or learned something new from it. But for now, I've been Otterly Noah, and I'll see you on the Otter side. Bye!